Hey everybody, this is Pat from the Like Attracts Like podcast. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this video today. Today, we're going to talk about something that was actually pretty powerful in my life, although I wasn't aware of why for a very, very long time. I didn't see the energy dynamic between this concept, unconditional love, being something where it just accepts everything. It never gets mad. It never gets like what the idea of a human being embracing unconditional love is. There's a trick that can kind of come in under the surface and really do some damage to people that may understand this or interpret it in a way that allows them to let go of themselves and who they are under the umbrella of loving someone unconditionally. There's a big misconception, I think, with what the word unconditional is when it comes to a human. And initially, there is this idea that what we are trying to do is get to a state or a place where we love unconditionally. And I'm going to tie this all together, I believe, so that it makes sense to you, the individual, in a subjective way, far removed from the idea of what you may have previously thought it needs to be in the world, as far as a concept with other human beings in your life or other things, so that you can allow yourself to interpret this in your own way. So again, if a human being is here to try to love unconditionally, wouldn't that then mean that anyone that was in your life that acted a certain way, for whatever reason, your job was to love them no matter what? And again, this is where some people might get turned off by this. And I was one of them, so I understand and I get it. But if you stick with me to the end, I'm going to hope that it makes some sense for you as well. Because there's and I don't want to use the word self-righteous because again, it can also trigger people, but there is a self-righteous thing that comes in when someone lets go of themselves and who they are to love someone unconditionally because they need help or because they represent something to the world. Or who does that to someone else? You don't just leave them be if they're struggling. And that's true. If someone comes into your awareness or is in your state of mind and awareness, and they've been presented to you for a reason. And if they need help and you are able to facilitate that help, then to the degree that you unconditionally love yourself will be the degree that you are actually able to unconditionally provide loving assistance to that person. So that's the first part of this process. I'm always going to bring it back to you unconditionally loving yourself in order to make the idea of being able to love and exist in the world in an unconditional way matter or make sense to you. So if there is someone who is in your life and is treating you a certain way, there comes a narrative sometimes with some people, and I'll explain in my life how this was relevant, where the person, one of the people on one end who believes they get this. So you're a spiritual minded person. You're a high conscious, high vibing person. You wouldn't be listening to this type of content if you weren't. So you're getting it. You're understanding love for yourself and others. You're understanding this unconditional nature of what we have access to consciously in this world. And you also understand that at higher frames of consciousness, at higher vibrations, if you will, of consciousness, you have access to that place where peace and love and the uncondition of things exists, meaning the love that you can experience when you hit a high conscious state is far removed from anything in the world that could ever put you there. And that's important in this part of this unveiling here. So what I mean by that, and you, again, if you're listening to this, you most likely know that if you have, through meditation, if you've ever done any kind of plant medicine, if you've ever done anything that has allowed you, the I am of you, to get to a frequency of consciousness where you have an inner peace and an inner love and an inner sense of connection, if you've ever been to that place doesn't care how much money you have. It doesn't care what this person did. It doesn't care what that person did. It doesn't care what you did in the past. It's not worried about the future at all. It just, that frequency that you can get to does not have any need to rely on anything physical in the world to provide that unconditional connection. And that's why I do what I do in the show. That's why I speak the way I speak, teach what I teach, because I believe that connection exists inside of all of us. And that's where this starts. That's where we need to facilitate what it is that we want to be in the world and how we want to live and exist unconditionally in the world. It has to begin by us cultivating that inner connection that is removed from physical things and people in the world, so that we can apply it without disruption from physical people and things in the world, getting us to think or doubt anything at all about this connection. When you finally cultivate that connection for yourself, there's very little, if not nothing in the world that can prevent you from that sense of knowing, that faith. That is the unconditional part that I want to talk about. What can happen is if you feel you have this intellectually, if you have this and you're like, I get it, unconditional love, I've been there, I felt it, I understand, love for myself, self-love, I take baths, I meditate, I get it, I do yoga. Like if you're in that place where you're about to crack open to the actual connection of what this is, then if someone mistreats you in your life, if someone is mistreating you in your relationship, there can be a part in the spiritual minded group where we feel that because we are here to help and spread joy and love and peace and harmony, that we need to do whatever it takes to help the other person. The caveat comes in when it comes at your expense. And this is something you're going to have to meter and manage, because there are some times where in order to actually help someone, you're going to have to maybe shift through some things and navigate some parts of yourself and your path to facilitate that. But there will be a point where, or you may understand this in your own life, where over time, because someone needs help for a long time, you are slowly depleting your own sense of connection. You're going outside of your own boundaries. You're doing things that you wouldn't normally do to help someone who needs help. And we call that giving unconditional love. But what it is someone who doesn't condition, this is so, trust me, I get it. It's tough because it feels like we're doing the right thing by helping someone. But if you're helping someone by not loving yourself in the name of being unconditionally loving to someone else, then you're not loving unconditionally. You're letting go of your own boundaries and your own sense of self and connection to yourself to provide help for someone else, but at your expense. So the way that I have this written here is it's unconditional love. It's not unconditional tolerance. So if there's someone that's beating you consciously, spiritually, or physically in the world, and you feel you need to stand in because you are such a whatever, or you need to love them unconditionally, that's not it. That's not it. It's not written that you let go of yourself and you deny yourself and you deny your boundaries. It's not written that you do that to help someone else always, no matter what, because it's the illusion of unconditional love in the world. The only way that could exist is if you don't unconditionally love yourself, meaning that you will trick yourself into thinking that you need to do everything you can for this person and all these people, no matter what it takes. I'll stay up this, I'll do this, I'll sacrifice sleep, I don't need this. And then you can get into this like martyr self-righteous place where you're doing everything for everyone else and I don't need this, and I'll suffer, but I love unconditionally. Nope, that's not it. That's not it. But the trick, if you're doing that, you're probably angry right now. But if you understand that it doesn't make sense if unconditional is you first, and you understand that the outside world is a reflection of you, then you can't possibly think that loving someone else unconditionally or something in the world unconditionally or some experience in the world unconditionally could possibly be more valuable than loving yourself first. You can tell whether you are doing this or not by whether or not you are ruining your own boundaries based on how you feel. If you don't feel good by loving someone else unconditionally, if you're letting yourself go, if you're denying like the part of you that is connected to your own source, then that's trick. That's an illusion. And everybody's on their own journey, and it can get really, really interesting when you really do love someone or something, and you're really trying to manage this evolution, because usually when someone comes into your life, it is an evolution of like this ladder state where there's someone that's a little bit higher, and then the person has a choice to come up to you or not. And then maybe you're struggling, and then this person gets a little bit higher in consciousness, and then you have a choice to see and not be defensive and then come up to it. But in every instance, it's each person's choice as to what they want to do, using the other person, this soul bond or this twin flame or this soulmate connection that's been put in your awareness to show you something about you. So here is why this is important. So I was married for 10 years. And when I went into my marriage, when I was into that relationship at first, I was at the height of my egoic success, if you will. I had money. I had a few houses. I was successful in business. That's why I'm so happy that I get to do this in a higher conscious, more connected way, because I used to teach people in business and companies that I was in how to get results in their life. And believe it or not, it's almost all the same. The concept and the ideas that we talk about here are almost all identical in the world of business or self-help or achieving results in the world. What matters is where it's coming from. So I was getting results in the world. I was teaching other people how to get results in the world, and I was very, very successful at it. Inside, I was a broken, disconnected, not happy, very, very sad, angry, but wouldn't let you think that I was angry because I needed you to like me person inside. I was able to, by efforting in the world, create the illusion of what I believed success was and what I needed other people to see me as. I was able to create this illusion by efforting a lot of energy and focus and imagination in the world. And I met my then wife at that time, my ex-wife, at that place, this very amazing place that I was in. But again, inside, that amazing feeling that I had that resonated with everybody was completely dependent on things that I had in the world. How many houses I had, how much money I had, what you thought of me. Am I doing enough for you to think what I think you need to think of me? Or like there was nothing here really. I felt like I was a good-hearted person. I felt like I was, always trying to do the right thing, but it was rooted in lack. It was rooted in not enough. So I met this person who was actually very amazing, very spiritually minded, very connected intellectually to all of these things. And what ended up happening was, of course, by design, the things that I created in the world, because you can only live that facade of happiness through things that you achieve and acquire in the world. You can only live that facade of unhappiness for so long before the inner you, the inner connection that's been like dying for you to reconnect to it, not to everything outside of you. That inner connection is calling you the entire time, no matter what you create in the world, thinking that you don't have it. And I would say that I thought I had it, but inside I was like, what is going on in this world? I don't get it. Why does this stuff happen? So those things started to fall apart. Think, losing this, boom, losing this. And it looked like the world was like shattering around me. It looked like I had no control over this. It looked like just everything was like just absolutely annihilating me. The universe was doing this to me. And I had a big life is happening to you. And every time something got taken away from me, I was a little less happy that day, and I had no way to get it back. There was no way for me to get it back because I was losing the things that allowed me to feel that way in the world. And this person that I was with, who knew me as this super high vibe, happy, inspirational, I gave every inspiration, hundreds and hundreds of people I used to talk to get them to do better in their lives in the business world. And she's like, what's happening? I don't understand what's going on. And because she wasn't rooted in the materialistic world of it having any value, she couldn't understand why these things were bothering me so bad. But for me, it was my entire sense of value and worth at that time because I built it on stilts. I built it with no actual value and worth. That was my value and worth, and they were getting plucked away from me. Everything was falling apart because it wasn't built with the energy of trust and inner love, unconditional love for myself. My love for myself was conditional based on that I had in my life that I acquired through efforting. So these things were being ripped apart from me. And this person was like, what is going on? Now, this person who is an amazing human, and again, got it to the point where she felt she needed to help me through this. But what would happen is every time I would go down a layer or lose something else, I would pull my attention from her. Because I couldn't even bear to look at her because I knew I was kind of at this point, I knew I was living a facade. I knew that I was living a false egoic life. I was now really diving into researching all this stuff, probably like you guys might be. I was listening to people. I was having my mind blown every day. Oh, I get what's going on. Oh boy, I'm in for a ride. I knew it. She was another person that I held as the source of my happiness. So the more that I would pull, it was just, you could just see the energy of it. The more that I would pull away because I would lose something, the more that I couldn't look at her, and she couldn't be the source of my happiness. So then she also, because it's a mirror, was dependently linked upon how I treated her also, because I was her evidence in the world at that time that you can get what you want if you do the things that we're talking about here. But this is where, like, when I say, like, don't get tricked, I was that trick. And this is why you have to get to a high conscious place so that this doesn't come into play. At that point in my life, I was that trick. I thought I had it. I thought I knew what was going on. I could talk a good game, but I was not connected inside. She was connected inside, but there's a sense of fear of losing me, which was that thing that she thought she manifested in the universe was working, that she let herself go every day to try to make me happy again, because her being the source of me being happy allowed her to be happy. And I was her evidence of this stuff working. So the more that I would pull away, the more she would see evidence of the stuff she thought happening the right way going away, and she would lose faith in herself, and she would lose faith in this thing. And she ended up just absolutely sacrificing every part of who she was to try to make me feel better. Me, knowing that she can't be the answer anymore, had to pull away completely to make sure that I was sure that I was the source of my happiness and that this never happened again. And so if you asked her back then, I'm going to guess she would say that she was loving me unconditionally, loving through conditions of everything that I was going through. When in fact, she wasn't loving herself at all through this. And it seems like this amazing thing to do. And for me, it was. At the time, like, it was an excellent thing that happened, and things played out the way that they needed to, for sure. And I appreciate every single thing that we went through to get us to see what was happening inside of that relationship. But there's a point where, because each person has to make their own choice, this person that's not loving themselves and saying that they need to love someone else unconditionally, it gets to the point where she had to get to her own explosion also, and understand and rework and rebuild from herself forward also. From that point, you go on a journey and you start to build your own connection to this thing that's been calling you. And it is outside of any and all of the physical things in the world, including people that you used to rely on to make you feel that way. If you have built anything upon lack, not feeling like you are enough, you can't sustain that for long. And you definitely, this is where people are like, I keep manifesting things I want, but I'm miserable. I'm not happy when I get them. I don't understand why. Because they're not being created from the energy of happiness and peace and contentment. You're not loving yourself unconditionally. And so this works both ways, but either way, you have to love yourself unconditionally. And if you could do that for long enough, you will attract scenarios back to you that represent your connection to yourself. If you are in a place where you feel like you are doing this, and then the other person or thing or whatever it is that's happening is starting to pull away from you, all you can do is continue to love and value yourself through that scenario, while offering whatever help or assistance you can to the person that you're with. I don't care if it's your husband. I don't care if it's your wife. I don't care if it's your business partner. The label of who the human is irrelevant. And that's important. The label, but it's my so-and-so. I don't care. I don't care who it is. If you are not loving yourself fully, then there's nothing amazing that can happen from your vantage point or point of view. There's no amount that you can sacrifice yourself to give something you think someone else needs for them to be better, and then you're laying on the ground in a puddle of mud, but they walk away. The only version of you that would think you would want that would be the self-entitled or self-righteous martyr. You could do whatever you want to me as long as you're happy, which is not a high vibrational place to be in. This sucks. I know this sucks. I have lived it. I help other people who are living it. It is never not the answer. It's never not the answer that you sacrifice your own self and value and worth to say that you're loving someone else unconditionally. It is not unconditional acceptance of tolerating things and abuse and degrading things from somebody that you say you love because you love them unconditionally. It is not that. It is never that. It has never been that. And the most important thing, if there's any kind of a takeaway here, is that let go of thinking that if you have been sacrificing yourself for a really long time to help someone, let go of thinking that this sacrifice that you're making for the betterment of someone else, if you didn't do that, then this person would be ruined. Give the people that you're with enough credit. And that's a thing. That's a big thing that I had to also understand, because there was a part of me that was like, well, because it was reversed on me too, because of course, as a mirror, you're going to see these same things in your relationships the other way too. So there was a point where I was with somebody that was like falling away, and they represented like I was a fixer. So I had to help this person. This is what I'm good at. This is what I do for like living. This is what I do. I have to help you. And I had to also realize that, like, let go of my own ego, thinking that like, well, if I don't provide this, sacrifice in my life to help you, then what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do without me? And you have to let that go too. We have to understand that as long as we love ourselves firmly every single day and every single moment that we can, trust and know that as a frequency back, yes, that person has their own choice, but give that person enough credit to know that they are just as powerful as you are, and that if they allow themselves to love themselves in your presence, then they will be elevated. And if they don't, that is their choice, and it sucks. But it is the way that this works. It's not me saying it. It's not another human saying it. It is the way the energy of this works. There's not another example that you're going to have where somebody says, yeah, if you completely let yourself go, and for someone else, that's a good thing. It's not not for the long run. You have to be able to come back. And it's a yo-yo. It's not to say that you can't always do this to help somebody get somewhere that you need to be. But if you're doing it as your lifestyle because you feel you need to love unconditionally and tolerate whatever that means, that's not it. Always try to bring yourself back to center so that you can be at a frequency to provide the help that you think you need to do. And then from that place, you'll actually be able to do the work that you came here to do. And you will be loving yourself unconditionally. And therefore, you will be then able to love everyone equally as unconditionally. And that is what I wish for each and every single one of you. If you guys have any questions or comments, you guys know where to leave them. You guys know where to find me on all social media platforms. I love you guys. Thank you so much. As always, have an amazing day, a wonderful night. I'll see you next time.